What if everything you thought you knew about cancer was wrong? It starts silent, deep inside the body. A single cell goes wrong, then another, and one day a doctor sits across from you and says those words that change everything. Cancer doesn't care how old you are, how healthy you eat, or how much you have to live for. It takes the young, it takes the old. It hollows out families without warning. Most people believe cancer is a modern disease, a product of processed food, air pollution, industrial chemicals, and sedentary lifestyles. And yes, those things absolutely play a role. But the real truth is far more unsettling than that. The truth is that cancer is not new. It is not something we created. It is something far, far older than civilization itself. So the real question is, did ancient humans get cancer too? And the answer might completely change the way you see this disease. Before we go any further, if this already has you thinking, go ahead and hit that like button. Drop a comment telling us if you ever thought cancer was a modern disease, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what comes next. What we're about to uncover will genuinely change the way you see cancer forever. In 2016, deep inside a cave in South Africa, researchers made a discovery that stopped the scientific world in its tracks. They were examining ancient fossils when they found something no one was fully prepared for. A foot bone belonging to a human ancestor, a species known as early Homo, approximately 1.7 million years old. And that bone carried something terrifying inside it. The bone showed clear, undeniable signs of osteosarcoma, a malignant bone cancer. Let that sink in for a moment. This was not a fracture. This was not an injury from a fall or a fight. This was a tumor, actively growing inside the foot of a creature that walked this earth before our species even existed, before language, before fire, before anything we would recognize as human. And that wasn't all. The same study also identified a benign spinal tumor in another skeleton from roughly the same time period. Two separate cases, two different types of abnormal growths, both nearly 2 million years old. Scientists refer to these growths as neoplasms, and finding them preserved in fossils, this ancient sends a message that is impossible to ignore. Cancer was not born in a fast food restaurant. It was not created by cigarettes or chemical plants or modern stress. Cancer was already here long before any of those things existed, long before we existed. A creature that had no concept of illness, no doctor to visit, no words to describe its pain, was already carrying a malignant tumor in its body. And if cancer was present 1.7 million years ago, the real question becomes, just how deep does this go? Here's something that makes this whole story even more staggering. That 1.7 million year old bone we just talked about, that's actually one of the rarest things we could have ever found, because cancer, in most cases, doesn't attack bone. Cancer mostly targets soft tissue, organs, skin, blood, muscle, and soft tissue doesn't fossilize. It disappears over centuries and millennia, leaving absolutely nothing behind for us to study. This is what scientists call preservation bias. The fossil record can only show us the cancers that left a physical mark on hard tissue. Everything else, every tumor that grew in a lung, a liver, a stomach, or the skin of an ancient human is simply gone, vanished. We will never know those cases existed, which means what we've found so far is not the full picture. It's not even close. That's exactly why mummies have become so incredibly valuable to cancer researchers. Unlike fossilized bones, mummies preserve soft tissue, and when scientists used CT scans and advanced imaging to examine 137 Egyptian mummies, they found something remarkable: evidence of tumors, thousands of years old, still visible inside preserved bodies. Ancient cancer, frozen in time, waiting to be discovered. And then there's the written record. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, dating back to around 1600 BCE, describes bulging tumors of the breast in striking detail. And the ancient physician who wrote it didn't offer a cure. He simply stated, there is no treatment. That single line, written nearly 4,000 years ago, carries a weight that is hard to describe. Ancient doctors saw cancer. They documented it. They felt the helplessness of it. And still, what they recorded is only a fraction of what was really happening. Now let's travel back to ancient Greece. Around 400 BCE, a physician named Hippocrates, the man widely regarded as the father of medicine, was observing something that deeply troubled him. He was looking at tumors, at the swollen masses growing inside his patients, and he noticed something that no one before him had put into words quite like this. The veins surrounding the tumor, engorged and spreading outward in every direction, reminded him of something alive, something that gripped, something that wouldn't let go. He called it karkinos, the Greek word for crab, and when you picture it, it makes complete sense. A tumor at the center, with thick, distended veins reaching outward like the legs of a crab clawing into the body. It wasn't just a name, it was a description of something that felt predatory, something that spread, that invaded, that took over. Hippocrates wasn't just naming a disease, he was capturing the terror of it in a single word. Centuries later, the Roman physician Celsus translated that Greek word into Latin. Karkinos became cancer. The same word, the same image, the same fear, just carried forward through time and language, and that word has never left us. Every time a doctor delivers that diagnosis today, they are unknowingly echoing a physician who lived over 2,000 years ago. What is so striking about all of this is that for millennia across Greek, Roman, Egyptian, and countless other civilizations, human beings were watching cancer, recording it, fearing it, and trying desperately to understand it. They described it with stunning accuracy, and yet, despite everything they observed, not one of them truly knew what was causing it. That answer would take thousands more years to begin to emerge, and even today, it's still not complete. So, we've established that cancer is ancient, but that naturally leads to a deeper question, one that scientists have spent generations trying to answer. Why does cancer exist at all? What is actually happening inside the body when it begins? And the answer, when you truly understand it, is both fascinating and deeply unsettling because it has nothing to do with modern life and everything to do with the very process that keeps us alive. Every single time a cell in your body divides, it has to copy its entire DNA, billions of instructions replicated with extraordinary precision. But precision is never perfect. Small errors happen. Tiny mutations slip through. Your body has remarkable repair systems designed to catch and correct those mistakes, but occasionally one gets past them. A damaged cell survives. And if that damaged cell carries a mutation that causes it to divide faster than it should without stopping, without following the rules, that is where cancer begins, not from poison, not from failure, from the unavoidable imperfection of biological life. And here is what makes this truly staggering. This risk is not uniquely human. Any living organism with cells that divide carries this same vulnerability. Dinosaurs developed cancer. Fossilized dinosaur bones have been found with clear signs of malignant tumors. Ancient fish, hundreds of millions of years old, show evidence of abnormal cellular growth. Even trees can develop tumors. The galls you see growing on bark, those are, in many ways, a plant version of the same process. Uncontrolled, relentless, ancient. Cancer is not a glitch in the modern world. It is not a consequence of the way we live today. It is a consequence of being alive, of being made of cells that must divide, that must replicate, and that will, inevitably, sometimes make a mistake. And understanding that changes everything about how we should think about this disease, about prevention, about treatment, and about what science has been quietly uncovering for decades. There's a question that comes up constantly when people learn about the ancient history of cancer, and it's a completely fair one. Did ancient humans have less cancer than we do today? The honest answer is probably yes. But the reason why is almost certainly not what most people assume. And when you understand the real explanation, it completely reframes how we think about this disease and our relationship with it. The single biggest factor is life expectancy. Most people in the ancient world didn't live past 25 to 35 years old. They were killed by infections, by childbirth, by injuries, by famine, long before cancer had the time it needs to develop. Because cancer is, in many ways, a disease of accumulation. Mutations build up over decades. Tumors take years, sometimes 20 or 30 years, to grow large enough to cause symptoms. If you die at 30, cancer simply never gets its window. Ancient humans weren't protected from it. They just didn't survive long enough to encounter it. And let's be honest about something else. Ancient life was not a cancer-free paradise. Early humans breathed smoke from open fires for hours every single day. They carried parasitic infections that are now directly linked to certain cancers. They worked under intense sun with zero protection for entire lifetimes. The risk factors were always there, just different ones. What has genuinely changed in the modern world is a combination of three things. We live longer. We detect cancer far earlier and more accurately than ever before. And we have introduced new risk factors at a massive scale: tobacco, obesity, processed meat, chronic inflammation. Some cancers are absolutely more common today because of modern life. And that distinction matters enormously because it means some of this is preventable. But understanding how and why requires us to look at what science has discovered about how cancer actually grows inside the body. Here is where this history stops being just fascinating and starts being genuinely useful, because understanding how ancient cancer was, how deep it runs in the story of life itself, is not just an academic exercise. It is actively shaping the way scientists are approaching treatment and prevention right now. The past, it turns out, holds some of the most powerful clues about how we fight back. Take elephants. Elephants are enormous animals with billions of cells, and they live for decades, which means their cells divide constantly, accumulating mutations over time. By every statistical calculation, elephants should develop cancer at extraordinary rates, but they don't. And scientists discovered why. Elephants carry up to 20 copies of a gene called TP53, a powerful tumor suppressor gene that detects damaged cells and forces them to self-destruct before they can become cancerous. Humans have just 2 copies. Researchers are now studying this biological mechanism directly, looking for ways to replicate that protection in human cancer treatment. An elephant's ancient genetics may one day save human lives. At the same time, paleontologists, scientists who study ancient tumors, are comparing bone cancers found in fossils with the cancers we diagnose today. By tracking how specific malignancies have changed across hundreds of thousands of years, they can begin to understand how cancer evolves, adapts, and responds to pressure. That knowledge is not historical curiosity. It is a roadmap. And so we come back to that bone, 1.7 million years old, recovered from the red soil of South Africa, a creature that had no language, no fire, no concept of medicine. And cancer was already there, already growing, already taking something from a life. That is how long this disease has been with us. And yet, for the very first time in all of that immense, unbroken history, we are the generation that has the tools, the science, and the knowledge to genuinely fight back, and that changes everything about what comes next. If you made it to the end of this video, that already says something about you. You're someone who wants to understand the world more deeply, not just the surface, but the real story underneath. That's exactly what this channel is built for. Content that challenges what you think you know, that takes the biggest questions and gives them the honest, fascinating answers they deserve. If this video made you think, made you feel something, or simply left you wanting more, comment the word ancient right now. It tells me this kind of content matters to you, and it helps this channel reach more people who think just like you do. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on the notification bell, because what's coming next on this channel is going to be just as powerful as what you watched today. Leave a like before you go. It genuinely makes a difference. And share this with someone who would find it just as fascinating as you did. The next video is already on your screen. Don't stop now.